We've got my guy, Mitchell Renz, fantasy analyst here on the program. Mitchell, welcome. On Friday, you did your top fantasy running backs. It's time to do your top 5 fantasy quarterbacks. And let's go to Mr. Cam Newton to start things off.
Let's start it off with my man, Superman. And I mean, there's a reason why we call him Cam. He's only missed 3 games in the last 7 years. And when you look at fantasy football, I want a quarterback who can run, and that's exactly what this guy does. Career high in rush attempts last year, career high in rushing yards, 754. He's the only player, Cam, in the NFL since 2011 with at least 5 rushing touchdowns. There's no other running back to do it. It's Cam Newton, and that's how dynamic he is. And when he can run and he can get those rushing touchdowns for you, that's what separates him in fantasy football. Over the second half of the last season, 12 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 499 rushing yards, and 3 touchdowns. Plus, they added DJ Moore. Love me some Cam Newton.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this wide receiver core, and it's kind of funny for me to say that because when you think Panthers, you don't think crazy aerial attack, but low-key, the wide receiver core is going to be pretty good. You got Greg Olsen there at tight end as well, and if you want to think about from a daily fantasy perspective when you guys are playing your FanDuel games, Cam Newton's going to be a very tempting option.
Oh, yeah, because he has those boom weeks, and when you want to make that money on FanDuel, this is who you need. You need Cam Newton because when he goes for that 100 yards rushing, a touchdown, and then throws for 300 yards, yeah, you're going to win some money.
All right, so Cam Newton is there at number 5, Mitchell. Let's take a look at number 4 here on the list, and you have a guy who was on pace to perhaps being in the MVP conversation until he got hurt. Deshaun Watson checking in at number 4.
Yeah, Watson was an absolute monster. So a QBR of 81.9 that led the NFL through Week 7 last year. It's actually the highest QBR of any quarterback in his first 7 career games over the past 10 seasons. Watson was ranked first in rushing yards among quarterbacks and was tied for first in passing touchdowns. He had a touchdown rate, Cam, of 9.3%.
Unreal.
In the last 42 years, only Deshaun Watson and Peyton Manning in 2004 have had a touchdown rate of over 9%. And he didn't have a single game with over 34 attempts. Like, he was doing it at such a high rate. He was unbelievable. DeAndre Hopkins was incredible. Heck, Will Fuller, 11 catches, 7 touchdowns before Watson got hurt. Insane. Deshaun Watson, oh, man, I can't wait to see what he does in his sophomore season.
All right, big thing to watch there with Houston, that offensive line. How will that pass protection hold up there for the Texans? But in terms of FanDuel, while you guys are playing your games in the 2018 season, Deshaun Watson, he's going to be expensive, but he will be a worthy purchase. I'll say that.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to number 3 here on the list. But before we do, you guys are watching the Cam Rodgers Show presented by FanDuel. Head on to FanDuel.com/chatsports. You earn $10 free when you sign up. So head on to that URL at the bottom of your screen, FanDuel.com/chatsports. And we'll be talking about FanDuel here throughout this fantasy ranking segment with Mitchell Renz. Let's take a look at number 3 here on the list, the reigning MVP himself, Tom Brady.
Yeah, it's hard to get away from Tom Brady, so he led the NFL in passing yards last season with 4,577. And when people tell me, oh, he's going to lose a step, he's getting old, the dude threw for 505 yards in the Super Bowl. And over the last 3 years, 96 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. Like, does that sound like a guy who's falling off? Doesn't to me. He lost Brandon Cooks, and he won't have Edelman for the first 4 weeks. But guess what? I don't care. This guy does it every single year with whatever you give him. He's the GOAT for a reason, and that's why he's my number 3 quarterback this year.
And, of course, something to bear in mind, the suspension there for Julian Edelman. Tough break. Brandon Cooks is no longer there. Rob Gronkowski monitored retirement for some time. So some off-the-field stuff that I'm thinking about with Tom Brady. And, Mitch, he would be an interesting contrarian play because I think in FanDuel he's going to be one of the more expensive quarterbacks out there. If you pay up highly for a quarterback, you're already differentiating yourself.
Exactly, and I think over the first 4 weeks, he's a guy that I'm going to look at. People are sleeping on Jordan Matthews. Jordan Matthews is a great receiver for the Eagles his first 2 years, 8 touchdowns in both those years. And I think people are going to sleep on Tom because he's not going to have Edelman. All the drama that we've had this offseason with the Patriots. Again, don't sleep on Tom Brady. I don't know how you can.
All right, let's take a look at number 2, Mitchell, and I'm definitely going to play devil's advocate with you here, my man. You got Russell Wilson checking in. And this is not an indictment on Russell. It's more of an indictment on the offense in general, but go ahead, state your case.
I'm going to state my case because in fantasy football, it's about points. And this team is going to put up points because they have to, Cam. The Seahawks defense is totally depleted, and Russell Wilson last year led the NFL in passing touchdowns with 34. He scored 37 of the Seahawks' 38 touchdowns. Only J.D. McKissick, who the heck is that, scored the other one. And I mean, when you just look at Russell Wilson and what he can do with his legs, I mean, he always gets I'm going to say like over 400 rushing yards. He's got 6 years of over 480 rushing yards, and just like this is a guy who's going to come in and play super well. He doesn't need that great offensive line. Imagine if he would actually get one. It would be great to see. And his pass attempts have increased every single year of his career. 553 pass attempts last year. I see that number getting up to 600. Just based on volume alone, Russell Wilson. He's my number 2, and he was the number 1 quarterback last year.
Sure.
So let's hear it. State your case.
All right, well, Mitch, in the interest of time, I can't, but I'll tell you off air.
Dang.
All right, let's get to number 1 here. Your top selection, Aaron Rodgers, coming off that injury from last year. We saw a little bit of him. What do you make of Aaron?
What do I make of Aaron? 16 touchdowns, 6 interceptions last year, but in his first 5 games before the injury, Cam, 13 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. That's a pace for about 41.5 touchdowns for the entire season. Like Aaron Rodgers in his last 5 years when he's played 15 or more games, he's averaging 38.6 touchdowns a season. There's a reason why I think he's the most talented quarterback in the league. He's my number 1 quarterback, and I understand that, yeah, Jordy Nelson's not there anymore, but he still got Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams. They drafted 3 guys in the draft. Aaron Rodgers is the best quarterback in the NFL right now, and he's my number 1 fantasy QB.
He's definitely going to be up there in terms of pricing on FanDuel.
Oh, yeah.
I think actually your top 3 quarterbacks are going to be highly priced for sure.
For sure.
All right, so that brings us our FanDuel reaction poll. Who's the best fantasy quarterback for the 2018 season? Now, the 2017 FanDuel ranks there. Obviously, Rodgers is at 28 because he was hurt. Tom Brady was number 2. As you mentioned, Russell Wilson was number 1. Are you throwing up your like?
Yeah, I'm giving my like to Aaron Rodgers. I think he's going to score the most points in FanDuel, no doubt, this season.
All right, I'm going Rodgers as well. I'm with you on that one. I'm throwing up my like as well, and we invite you guys to do that too.